Welcome to Python for Data 1, Unit 4, Functions as Objects and Arguments. If this is your first time taking this unit, we're only going to do about half of this unit. The second half of the unit, you will need to have already gone through loops and some of the other class. That's really intended for people coming through the second time or the second time you've gone through this. These are related to functions, which is why I put it here, but some of these you'll need to know loops, you'll need to know some other features before you can actually do it. Now we're going to do a quick review on global and local variables. We've been taking a look at these already, but just a little bit more formally. We've got the one that's being loaded into A, this is global. We've got a 5 that's local that's overriding this. And we can see this if we load this up and actually run this, we get back to 15. If we go down here, we have a situation where we have the global as employee name, and then here we are actually doing an input, which will be passed into name, and then that name will then be passed into employee name. We can get the name here, and we can see that this is also, I'm not going to run this one, but we can see that this is also a situation where the local is overriding the global. If we come down here, we can actually put within a function, and we're going to see how this will be useful in a second. We can go inside of a local kind of arena and call this out as being global just by typing in global and saying, hey, employee name is not going to be global, and then we can use it in different functions. So I want you to take this exercise here and think of a way to use if then else's to keep the global variable if it meets a certain criteria, but if it doesn't, to use an input. So think through that one a little bit and see if you can figure out how you might actually use that. All right, coming back, we saw in Unit 3 a situation here where we were having to make an attribute, function attribute out of a variable. Here we're going to, it was to solve this issue of like, hey, I want to be able to use variables inside of other functions, and how do I call them? We're going to see that we can do that using global as well. So we can go into this first function. This is the exact same scenario that we had in Unit 3, except now we're using global. We're saying this is going to be a global variable, and now I can actually use it down here to run this out. So if we run this, we can see this works just fine, calling it out as global. Now the nice thing about this, doing it this way, is you don't have to type out first func all the time. So this might actually be a little bit of a better way if you choose to use it. Functions as objects has to do with compiling and compiling time. So anytime that you run the function, call the function, it has to go through and run it. But if we take the function and actually load it into an object, then it is compiled and it actually runs a little bit faster. So here we've got this print test. Every time I call print test, it's actually running this. But if I take print test and I say, okay, I'm going to actually load this into a object called function, then this will run faster. So, I mean, we're not going to notice the time here, but that's the idea, is you can take your functions, load them into objects, and then they're compiled and they actually load a little bit faster. Very similar to if you import a function or a library and then they run faster. Okay, down here we have kind of a, this is taken straight out of zyBooks. This is a reminder. This is a collection of my lessons learned, classes I've taken, books I've read, videos I've watched. I've just put kind of the usual suspects, munged things together, kept some of their words, changed it to some of my words. So it's just a whole mishmash of what helps me, and I would recommend you do the same for yourself. Is create your own modules, create your own create your own workbooks and do this a similar kind of thing. Peel out the things that help you, rewrite things that you don't like. In this situation right here, we're taking, and I think this one's from, yeah, this is, I give credit where credit's due. This is coming from zyBooks. Classic little example here. So we've got a human head that we're putting into a function. We've got a monkey head, which we're putting into a function. You know, got the good old stubs here. And then we've got a body. And the body has this argument for face. So we have a choice where we can enter 1 to draw a monkey or 2 for a human. We're going to load that into choice. So if the choice is 1, we're going to print the monkey head, print figure, print figure face. See, that's how that works. We got a print figure face. So it can get a little confusing because I'm not using A's and B's anymore, but really this is just an argument that's being passed into this placeholder, and then we're going to put the monkey head where the face should be. And then we're going to actually, run this out. So let's go ahead and run this. It's just good to keep that in mind. Got to go with the monkey head every time, right? It's funner. All right, so what I would like you to do is just take a second, go, okay, do I understand exactly how this is working, how everything relates to each other, and how these are kind of passing along? Common errors when you're dealing with functions is a big one is copying and pasting and then manipulating it, and it doesn't quite work correctly. So in this one, I'm doing Celsius to Fahrenheit, copying and pasting it, flipping it from Fahrenheit to Celsius, and this typically will cause some errors. So I'd like you to look through this, see if you can find the errors and fix it. More common errors, a big one is forgetting to do a return. So in this case right here, we've got steps to feet, we've got the number of steps, we've got feet per step. So we have to read through this a little bit because this is a common error that you need to troubleshoot, and it can drive you mad because you look at it and go, this should totally work, and it's just that you're forgetting your return. This exercise down here is converting Celsius to Kelvin. So you should be, if you're feeling like this is a little bit redundant, feel free to skip it. But if you need a little bit more practice, this is a good one to kind of walk through. Okay, so come down here to keyword arguments and default parameter values. Essentially, like we're looking at arguments again, but we want a little bit more control over them. So in this example, I'm putting in title, author, publisher, year, version, so on and so forth. A lot of book information. And then when I want to print this out. So when I actually run this, I have a lot to type in here, and I'm trying to match everything. This is pretty wild. It's wrought with potential errors, getting things wrong, not lining things up correctly. So probably a better method to do this is to do keyword arguments, essentially where you got a key here and you're putting in the parameter for that key or the argument for that key right within the description. So that's kind of nice that you don't have to just be guessing. You just put title, publisher, year all the way down, and it's going to tie out that you're putting the right information in. It also makes it a little bit more readable. I don't know why I'm getting a expected indent error. Oh, yeah, I need to do the print here. That's why. Okay, I'm not printing anything off. So if we go in, how it works. And of course we can put in more than just the author if we want to. We can put in number of pages. Get that spelled correctly. All right, number of pages. Guess I could have just used the tab. Author is not defined. There we go. So what happens when you have a mic in front of you and you're trying to type around it? All right, so we've got 456 pages. We're off to the races. Obviously, it adds some clarity. It helps you line things up a little bit better. We have this first split check as well for lining each of these up. Now, you don't have to always use it. Like that's the example I'm showing here. This is going to go into the amount. Like this is saying here, you will generate an exception if you really want to put these ones first and then actually do your keywords after. You don't want to flip it and do the other way where you do keywords and then try to put the positional ones after. It kind of can cause some problems. One of the things you can do, and we did see this previously, I think it was in Unit 3, where we put default parameters already in the arguments. So for example, here we've got the print date, we have the day, month, year, style, and then I put a default in here. So these can be overwritten when you actually run these. So this is going to be, day 30, month 7, year 2012, and then this is going to be overwritten right here, and this will actually accept the default. So if we run all these out, we'll actually see that play out. So you can see the styles here changing based off of the if then else statement. So the arbitrary argument list is otherwise known as Args, and you also have Kwargs, which is going to be the keyword argument list. If this is your second time through, then you'll go, yep, I can kind of read some of this. What this is allowing is to include optional parameters and optional keyword parameters. So this one wouldn't necessarily be a keyword parameter. So I've got bread and meat, and you can see down here I'm entering sourdough, turkey, and mayo. Well, that's a condiment. That's what this is allowing. It's allowing for additional parameters that maybe are not defined, or I don't have them figured out yet. And as a matter of fact, I can enter in multiple of those. So that's the idea with these args, that where there might be multiple ones. Now when you're reading these, you're going to be dealing with loops, and that's going to be coming up, so hold tight. But for right now, just realize that args allows you to put in arbitrary arguments that you don't have clearly defined. Keyword arguments, or I'm sorry, kwargs, which keyword arguments, you have these double asterisks. Args has a single asterisk. Kwargs allows you to do keywords. So you want the sauce to be mustard, you want the veggie to be tomato. Notice none of that's outlined up here within the parameters, and that's the idea behind that. So hopefully for your second time through, you're like familiar with the loops. And if you're looking at this now, hopefully this makes a little bit more sense of how you would read these in to the function. For your first time through, you can just kind of keep moving on. From here, just kind of take a note of args and quarks and how they work. Pretty cool little function down here that allows you to mess around with opening applications. So you've got your other for loop going on, but it's working with kwargs in order to decide the arguments that you want to put in for different things, like if you're going to be opening different files, how you want it to start, what slide you want it to go to. This gives you a lot of control over different applications that you might want to try to open. So this one's worth playing around with and getting used to for your second time through the loop. All right, back to first time through the loop, and hey, second time if you want review as well. This is the running a program, and I think I mentioned before that I was going to get rid of the exit. That's this right here. This is the proper way to do it. So I think before I was like press enter in order to exit. This is, you want to do from sys import exit, and then that's the correct method. In here, this is running a program of what you would like to do, and this is continuation, basic calculator, different calculators that I've created. But really the programs down here, we can see that we really need to read this backwards to see what this is doing. So when I run start, it's going to go through here and it's going to print this off to the user, and it's going to say, okay, calculator world, enter the number for the calculator you want, 1 for basic, 2 for so on and so forth. And we have the if then else here. So if they enter any of these things, it's going to kick off a function. See how we read things backwards and how it makes more sense than if we try to do what I was doing, reading forwards. It's like, what exactly does this do? So if we go to this one, we say, okay, so we're going to run the basic calc. So we go find basic calc. Where's that at? So here's basic calc. Choose 1 for addition, 2 for subtraction. Oh, okay, so this actually allows us to choose 1 or 2, and based off of that, it's going to either do the add or the subtraction, which is pretty cool. And what happens when it hits this CONT at the end of this? Because it's not being called down here. So what is that all about? Well, if you go up here, what would you like to do next? Okay, see, now that's making sense. Once I've run a calculator, what else would I like to do? Do another calc or exit? And how does the exit work? Well, it actually does it proper, and we're gone. We're out of this program. If we want to continue, it goes back to start. I'm kind of flying through this, but make sure that you feel very comfortable. And with this, you can take your program that you currently have for your skill builder and tighten it up a little bit as a program. Maybe get rid of that enter, to exit. See if you have an option to put a menu in, a nice little menu for yourself. And see if you haven't gotten a couple extra things that you can play around with to make this a little bit stronger. If this is your second time through, you can use Args and Kwargs to make it easier to relate skills to scores. You definitely will be excited for your first time through being able to do this, where you're tying things together and writing them to a file. Anyways, that's the end of this unit. Again, a little bit fast, but I think that gets you the information that you need on functions at this level. Here's a little bonus material, Introduction to Modules and Packages with Functions. Just a really quick introduction. You can take what you have here with Calculator World and we can break it down and say, hey, these things are reusable, so like subtraction and addition, I might want to use those in other programs. And rather than having to code it over and over again, what I'd like to do is I'd like to save this down in its own file, and then I can call it whenever I want to use it and not have to come in and copy it out of this program and paste it into another one. So a module is going to be just some self-contained code, it's just one function, whereas a package is a collection of these modules or a collection of functions. Again, very introduction, so let me give you just a quick demo or an example of it. You have this calculator here, and let's say we want to take the addition here that we have and we want to strip that out. So we're going to actually bring this in. We're not going to bring in the logic of the program because remember, this isn't going to translate well into other programs. So we just want the piece of logic that we can reuse over and over again and not have to keep coding it. So we bring that over and we're going to save it down into where our scripts are kept. So you can see I have my script over here for add and I've saved it over into this folder. Next one is we have an example of more of a package where we have some different definitions in here and that we can use. And this one has the subtraction, and then I've created a dynamic subtraction. Notice we have Kwargs here. A little review on Kwargs where we were taking a value and we're associating it with a key. So this is how we kind of get around this when we want to call something in and you get error messages saying, hey, well, I need some values. So Kwargs is the way to do it. It gives you that wild card. So we're going to take this, which is called sub, and save this into our folder. And now let's go ahead and see how these behave. So the first thing that we're going to do is get our current working directory. Just to make sure that we're where we're supposed to be. And oh, I need to import it. I think I'd remember that since that's what I'm showing right now. So we're in Python scripts, so that's perfect. Next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do an import for my add. And it's called add, so it's pretty bad naming, but I'm just doing this really quickly as a little bonus. And I have to know already that it requires 2 arguments, so I'm going to do just like a 10 and a 5 just to show that, you know, it needs 2 arguments. Oop, where's my add? It needs 2 arguments in there, so I'm going to put the 10 and the 5 in. So we run this. Hey, it works. So I've imported add. This is one that I've created, so I've imported it from here, brought it into this screen and said I want to use this, and so I can use this up in my calculator and remove this. The next one that I'm going to do is I'm going to import subtract to show you how that works. Whoop, not sub process. And then under here we're going to do a sub.sub, and we'll put in the 10 and the 5. Okay, so that's working now. Next thing that we're going to do is it's already imported. I've already imported sub, so I'm going to go into sub and say that I want the dynamic sub that I created. So we'll run this one. And it's allowing me to kind of bypass those values that would need to be put in otherwise because I'm using Quarks. So we'll do a 10. Actually, let's do something a little different. Do 5 and 10 so we can see and test the negative value. All right. That is just a little introduction on modules and packages. Obviously it gets a little bit more complex, but that'll get you going. And a good exercise is to take this calculator world here and break this out into different modules or a full package. Like I could probably take the add and put it inside of subtract and just call it my math, and then bring in my math and use the different pieces of it that I want to use. All right, good luck with that exercise, and I will see you in Unit 5.